Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time you are having. Stopping by to visit my channel, It's Naturally Nat. I'm glad that you're here. Welcome. Today we're going to be making something that's good any time of year, and it's brownies. But it's just not any brownies. In fact, it is brownies on a whole different level. I've not made you my original brownie recipe that I've been making for 20 years. It is such a good recipe, in fact, that, well, hello, little one, that I won, be careful, first place for this brownie recipe in a division that was very competitive, shall I say, with this old brownie recipe. Not the one I'm going to make, but this old one. Look how beat up she looks, right? And I thought it was the best recipe. Everybody said so. It was a recipe that I also would make a homemade buttercream frosting, chocolate frosting to put on, sometimes even a ganache, and people would go nuts until recently. Okay? In fact, I wasn't even sure I was going to even share that recipe with anybody because I'm the only one that has this recipe until recently, when I think I have one that is just as good, in some ways better, but just as good. Okay, so I made this for several test audiences, and it's something this recipe I normally, again, I wouldn't make because I already have the best brownie recipe. But I stumbled upon this bad boy. I got a deal on this. Just got in on accident. It was free. And I was like, what am I going to do with this? In fact, I had two of them. And I had three of them, okay, that were marked way down, almost to nothing because they'd expired, right? And so I was like, what am I going to do with these? I mean, other than stick your finger in it, and you know if you have this around, you've done that, and put it in your mouth and eat it, what do you do with it? You can put it on peanut butter sandwiches, but what can you do? So I got to thinking, do I do an elevated ice cream? Because I do make homemade ice cream. I haven't for a long time. Could I make a homemade elevated ice cream with this? Should I use it as an ice cream topping? And then I did a deep dive on the internet forever and thought, you know what? You can make brownies with this. And I had such low expectations. Again, blue ribbon recipe here, that I had such low expectations. I thought, you know what? I'm going to make it once and it's going to be lousy. And BM or Daniel are going to get stuck eating it. Nope. It was really good using this Nutella, or I'm sure there's a generic of it. All it is a hazelnut spread that also has cocoa in it, okay? So you could say this becomes the main ingredient along with butter in your recipe. It's got a lot of fat. In fact, it's 200 calories for 2 tablespoons, which we all know would be high, right? High in calories. And it's pretty high in fat. Now, there's no trans fat in it, but there's saturated fat. Surprise, surprise. And it's high in that, but it otherwise is pretty yummy stuff. So let's get started, and I'll show you how to do this, and have, of course, the recipe down in the comment section. You're going to need to have melted butter, and you've seen me do it in the microwave. You just have to be careful. And I have, what is it, a third a cup of this? Yes, a third of a cup, which I already liked better than my old recipe, because my old recipe took a whole stick, and prices ain't coming down on groceries. So anything that would take a lot of butter, because butter's expensive, I'd be like, this takes actually less. Unfortunately, this isn't cheap. Like I said, if you find it and they're marking it way down because it's expired, get it, because that's the star of this recipe. Okay, so we got the butter in there. And you're going to want 1 cup divided, meaning don't put it all in together. You're going to need 1/4 cup. 1/4 cup at the end, so keep that aside, set that aside, and you're going to need 1 cup of the Nutella here. You're also going to need 2 teaspoons of vanilla, which I have a really good quality, and you should have good quality too if you don't make your own. 2 teaspoons, so a little high on the vanilla. I've got an entire teaspoon of sea salt, fine sea salt, and I've got 3/4, is it 3/4 of a cup? Yeah, no, it's a half a cup. And I experimented, okay? The first 2 times I made it, I used dark brown sugar because sometimes there's difference between dark and light brown sugar. I didn't know that growing up because I don't think my mom knew. There's differences. I think it's an acidic difference, so you don't really want to jerk around with trying different kinds. But all I had open at the time was dark brown sugar, and it came out fine. It sunk a little bit, but it came out fine. This time I thought, let's make it with light brown sugar, and I'll let you know in the show notes if it makes any difference, because if it doesn't, use either one of them. Again, I used dark sugar the first 2 times and it came out fine. Okay? So the first thing that we're going to want to do is preheat our oven to 350. I already got that going. Then you're going to want to get an 8x8 pan. I have 3 of them. I might even have 4. Glass, of course. And line it with parchment paper. Here's 2 pro tips for you. Number 1, you're never going to get it to lay this nicely unless you tear off your desired amount to fit in the 8x8, 2 sheets like that. So you're going to lay them crisscross. Then wad the crap out of them. Picture the parchment paper in your hand as somebody who's really torqued you off lately, and just wad it up. The tighter the better. Then unwad it up, if you will, and it will lay nice like this. Okay? Don't bother with the type of parchment paper that says it won't curl or all this BS. This works just as good. You got to have this though, because I have been at times in my life where I had to really cut corners, and I've not used parchment paper with brownies. But the thing is, if you do that, and it will work, but they are a bear to get out. So if you have tons of patience and you don't mind the brownie breaking, you don't have to line up. But if you want them to come out nice, that's really why you use the parchment paper. Either because of a sticking problem or you want them to come out literally. You'll lift them out just like this, right? That's why you use the parchment paper. And another pro tip, a lot of people don't know this. Most parchment paper brands you can use 3 or 4 times. Maybe even more, so long as you're using it heats of under 350. Okay, so when I make my party pizza, my happy hour pizza, if I'm having friends over, that is a high temperature that I make my pizzas at, and I use the parchment paper only once, and you can tell where the edges singe that it can't take but 1 session at high temperatures. But if you're doing, like, again, 350, 375 or less, you can use those several times. This is my first use, though, because my other ones I had to throw away because it'd been 3 or 4 times. Okay? So, we got everything mise en place, right? We've got that ready to go. We got our oven preheated. So, we have our butter at the room temperature. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to want to beat this with no sugar just yet until it's nice and creamy. Which won't take long because my butter truly is very soft. And that didn't take very long, now did it? Next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to add the brown sugar and beat on high about 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes. So here's my brown sugar. Just opened, or my light brown sugar, just opened the bag. Going to go ahead and I set my timer because if I get to yakking, I might forget how long it's been. So I'm going to set my timer. So that way I'll know, okay? You're going to want it to get up on high eventually here. I like to let the brown sugar start to stick to the butter so it doesn't come flying out of the bowl. Now, could you use a stand mixer? Yeah. Does everybody have a stand mixer? No. Mine broke years ago. And we don't have anybody where I live here, out here, that works on small appliances anymore. So I had to get rid of it. It stinks. They're expensive. So I use a hand mixer for everything. Okay, it's not been the whole time, but you want to scrape the bowl, okay? You can't probably see, but I can. But I have some chunks of the butter that's not getting incorporated with the brown sugar. And that's not because I don't have a stand mixer. That's just because that's how this goes, right? The butter will fight you a little bit and not want to get thoroughly mixed. So here we go. Again. And you should only have to do that once. just my point of view, my humble opinion. But a lot of times I think you get to the desired effect faster if you do use a handheld, right? I know my mom always likes her stand mixer because she could walk away and multitask. Well, mom's not very good at multitasking, but my mom isn't. But she would multitask and then leave it, and you can't do that with a hand mixer. But I don't think you should multitask and walk away when you got the stand mixer running anyway. There's my timer. Okay. Now what we'll want to do is add our eggs. Another pro tip. I can't remember if I told you this. I never remember to get out my dairy and my eggs beforehand, right? So pro tip, if you forget, like me every time, take your eggs while they're still, in the shell. Put them in a bowl, something like a little bit bigger than this. Put hot water in it. 5 minutes later, they're room temperature. Not even maybe a full 5 minutes. Okay? So these are now room temperature. Okay? What we're going to do is we are going to add one, let it go in a little bit, and then I'm going to add the other. There we go. I'm going to add the next one, and I'm going to add the vanilla. Okay? Vanilla, again, 2 teaspoons of that. Oh, what is that? Don't you hate when you see a little, even though I cracked those in a separate bowl, see a little eggshell? Always keep your eye open for that. Those little suckers get in there. Nobody wants to bite into an eggshell. Let me rinse my hands off. There we go. Oh. There he is. You stay in there, you turd. Okay. Go ahead. We're gonna give this a good beat. No particular time. Don't forget to scrape the sides though, which is what I'm going to do right now. There we go. Get in there. You can't overbeat until you add the flour. Then you can, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I mean, you can overbeat, meaning you don't want to. You do not want to overbeat when you add the flour. Medium high. Okay, until just incorporated. Now, add your 1 cup, right? That's why you're dividing this. This is for later. Add your 1 cup. Don't worry about overbeating at this stage. The reason why you don't want to overbeat with flour is it makes whatever product you're in your baked good. When you overbeat it, you've gone too long beating it with the flour in it. It's going to come out in a not very desirable fashion. It'll come out tasting like dry. Okay, I had someone once make me cupcakes. It was very sweet of them, and they looked so nice. And then I bit into one, and they were bad. And at first I thought, did this person make these cupcakes like a week ago, and then gave them to me? Why would they do that? That's not nice. And then I was like, oh, they overbeat the batter, and they did. That person is not a very good cook. I know that now, but I didn't know that person then. Some people don't have the chops, right? Or maybe weren't taught. If you weren't taught and you didn't watch a lot of shows, I guess you wouldn't know if you didn't know, right? So we're going to go ahead. We added this cup. Let's go ahead. Oh, and the salt. Ooh, and I know that seems like a lot, but it helps with the taste. It offsets the sweetness of that hazelnut spread. Go ahead and mix till fluffy, which isn't going to take long. In fact, we're already there. And I'll even show you. I'm going to scrape down the sides though. See how the butter? Make sure it's just a little bit in there, maybe about a half a teaspoon on the sides. You want to scrape that down, okay? maybe give it one more blast before I hit that flour. Because once we put that flour in, we got to knock it off after that point. One more blast. Okay, we're good. All right. Now we're going to add the flour, and we're only going to need 3/4 cup. I don't know about you. I'm getting tired of seeing cooks, home cooks and chefs on YouTube and television always wearing the black gloves. What's up with that? I even looked it up, and AI said something about providing a jazzy look and a contrast with the food when the cook is cooking. And I was like, what a bunch of crap. It's dumb. Another thing I get tired of hearing is that you have to always have a special scale to measure your stuff. And maybe that is correct with very technical things, like maybe fresh bakery, or if you're making French bakery items. But a lot of the times, if you're measuring properly, you won't have a problem. But I have watched people cook before, some pretty well-known home cooks that have television shows on Food Network, and they're not measuring properly. So let's talk about how to measure properly. Then, unless you're doing something incredibly technical, again, like a French pastry, you really don't have to weigh your product all the time, if ever. So what you'll want to do, the problem is when chefs don't measure correctly what they're doing, you shouldn't be a chef, but let's just say a home cook. What they're doing is they're doing this. They're going, yep, I'm scooping it in there. I'm calling it good. There you go. There's 1 cup. That is not 1 cup. That's not even, that's more than 3/4 cup. That is too much flour. That's the wrong way to measure, okay? Flour can be compacted very easily. So what you want to do, and I always keep a cup in here just for that reason, keep it in here permanently, is you want to fluff up the flour. To fluff up the flour, what I do is just go like this before I measure, okay? So it's not compacted. Then, what you'll want, and of all things, I didn't learn this in culinary school, I didn't learn this at the bistro, I learned this when I was a little girl in 4-H, of all places, to learn a proper procedure. 4-H, right? So, got your knife out, you've got your flour, fluff it again, okay? We need 3/4 cup. You see what I'm doing? Right? I'll do it over here a little bit more. Fluff it again. Letting it just fall into there. Okay? Till it's a little slightly over. Take your knife, the blunt end. Go like that. That is exactly how much you need. No more or no less. Okay? Because I did not pack it in there. Okay? So we'll go ahead and add. Now, here's where we have to be careful. We've added our flour. We don't want to ruin the crumb, and we don't want to overstir. At this point, if you wanted to use a spatula, you could, okay? I'm only going to use this for just a few seconds, and then I'm going to finish with a spatula, okay? This is where overmixing can ruin something that's a baked good. I've got it on low. All right, I'm stopping right there. If you can see, it's not even thoroughly mixed. And that is fine, because I don't want to take the chance of overmixing the dough, okay? And if your hands are clean, mine are, you can just use your fingers to get all of this goodness off. But I think we're there. Now, if you have a grandson, a granddaughter around, or a kid, it's always fun to lick the beaters. All right. I don't know if I'm going to... Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get my sturdy gray one. Okay. Love this one. I use this little one all the time. But for making sure that flour is incorporated, got an itchy nose, I'm going to use the sturdy gray one. I'm going to get the flour that was on the sides. See? And we're just making sure. I'm not folding, although it kind of does look like I'm folding. I'm just making sure I don't overstir this. There we go. It's done. Okay? We're going to go ahead and put it in our prepared pan. Getting all that goodness out. Pretty good job. Let's get my mini spatula to get any little left over. That is done. If you have an inverted spatula, which I do, I have a couple, you'll want to grab that here in amid it. And if you don't have one, I'd recommend you order one off Amazon or get one from a good outlet. You can get them anywhere, but they are indispensable. Okay. You want to smooth this out. And it doesn't have to be totally perfect, but you want to be somewhere close to having it really nicely even. Oh, the smell of that hazelnut is so good. Why is that so darn nice smelling? I hope they have a perfume called, or a cologne called hazelnut brownie. Although I'm sure that there's a candle called that, right? Okay. There we go. You want it just like that, okay? You could even do that. Make sure there's any air bubbles, but I don't think so because this is pretty heavy. Now here's where this quarter cup comes in. What you're going to want to do, in little, roughly teaspoon sizes, you're going to want to drop on the top of this, okay? So you'll probably get like 2 or 3 rows of this, these little blobs on the center, or on the top, excuse me. See what I'm doing? Okay? In little rows, okay? And then we're going to squish that around, but I'll show you what I mean. And what this does, it creates a beautiful crust on top of the brownie, which my old brownie just had a crust. I mean, it wasn't beautiful. This creates a beautiful crust and makes swirls and gives you even more a pop of hazelnut right in the face, right? And that is awesome. It looks like I'm going to get 3 rows of 3 teaspoons going across. I'll show you in a minute. Hold on. And then we're going to do a little technique here. And then we're going to do one other thing after that. Then we're going to pop it in the oven. Okay. So I ended up with 3 rows of 3. And they don't have to be perfect. You don't need to use a teaspoon. Just get it like that. Okay? See that? Now take your inverted spatula, or you could use a knife, if you will, and you're going to run like this, jiggity-jaggedy, with it through the little clumps of the hazelnut spread. Okay? What you're doing is, you're kind of breaking them up, and you're getting them kind of semi in the batter. Okay? Then I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm not even having the inverted spatula go down to the bottom of the pan. Okay? I'm only having it go like a 1/4 inch maybe in. Okay? And I'm going back and forth. And then I'm going like back and forth the other direction. Horizontally and vertically, if you will. Okay? So, you're breaking up that hazelnut, right? You're breaking it up. You're not totally mixing it in. You're getting this effect, okay? Which is going to create a beautiful crust. And you got to trust the science, okay? So that's what you want to do. You're breaking it up. You're not leaving them in as 6 little blobs on top. We're going to go ahead and put it, or one other thing, I almost forgot. You could use regular kosher salt for this, but I bust out my Portuguese fleur de sel, which is a beautiful, let's see if I can show you. It's like almost sparkles like diamonds here. Type of salt that's flaky for finishing, okay? No real amount. I'm thinking this is maybe maybe an eighth of a teaspoon. You don't want all the crystals to break up. If they don't, that's exactly what you want. So it looks like this. Okay, go ahead and put it in the middle of the 350-degree oven. My notes, because of my elevation and my weird haunted stove, I always have to go longer, right? So it should be normal stoves, normal elevation, 30, what is it? 32 to 36 minutes, but I go 8 minutes longer. So what is that? 44 minutes, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and set the timer. Whoop, there we go. And it will be done. The house is going to smell glorious. And here's what it's going to end up looking like once you pull it out of the stove. This I made the other day. Look at that. I'll take a thumbnail when I pull this out, let it cool, and I'll make it the thumbnail of this video. But look at that. Look at this crust. Look at the top. Can you see that? Okay, I mean, yummy, right? How yummy is this? Okay, so let that bake, pull it out, put it on a rack. Well, let me back up a little bit. Let that bake. When you're checking on it, and you, let's say the timer goes off, you go to check it, or you're checking it, it's 3 minutes before the timer goes off or whatnot. And you kind of, if you open the door and shake it a little bit, and it shakes in the middle like a cheesecake, it's not done yet, okay? Normally brownies don't do this, but I'm assuming because of the high fat content with the butter and the hazelnut, that's why it shakes. What are you doing over there, you little weirdo? I'll let you out in a minute. So then take a toothpick and test it in the center. When it comes out clean, it'll be done. You don't want it to be jiggly. It's not done then, right? So use the toothpick. And then once you get it out, once it's done, you get it out, put it on a wire rack, let it cook, let it cool 10 minutes, then go ahead and lift the strips off, pull the strips off, put it back on the rack to just sit and cool more, and then cut into it if you can wait that long, and enjoy your beautiful hazelnut spread Nutella brownies. So take care of yourself, have a great day wherever you're at, and I'll see you next Sunday. Till then, have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.